Well, hello everybody, it's Jim Parsons, your Aussie writing mentor with Write That Novel Now, the free course on YouTube. And hey, it's lesson 30 of 30, the final lesson. So I want to say thank you very much for those of you who have followed this through the 8 months that I have been producing it. I hope you found it valuable. If, however, you've stumbled on this course right now on this very final lesson, you'll be able to go back and have a look from the start. And to aid that, just to whet your appetite, I'm going to use this final lesson to recap what we have covered. And also, I'd like to talk about the services I offer to writers, to novice writers. And I'm sure if you're already one of my writing clients, you won't mind me jumping into an ad for myself right now. Well, very quickly, the first thing that I offer to mentoring clients is a structural mentoring package, which consists of 3 questionnaires. You fill out the questionnaires, I respond to them, to your answers, and then we have an email dialogue, which can go on for weeks until we get through all 3 questionnaires. That costs $99 Australian. Now, be aware that all the prices I'm quoting are in Australian dollars. It means that if you're in America, it's quite likely that it's about 2/3 of that. So it could be $60 US. And of course, if you're in the UK, it's about half what I'm quoting here. Keep that in mind. The prices are in Australian dollars. So that's the structural mentoring package. Then when we start on mentoring chapter by chapter, I look at what you've written, I make comments, I make suggestions, and that goes strictly by word count. So you will know how much a chapter is going to cost you before you send it to me, because it's based on 7 cents a word, which of course is 7 Australian dollars per 1,000 words. Your average chapter that may be 2,000 words, I pay $14 for that chapter. If you don't feel comfortable about just jumping in and writing a novel, and hence you don't have one as yet, maybe you'd like instruction. Maybe you'd like to learn the skills of writing a novel. And then I have my novel writing course. It's been in existence for about 15 years now. It's still popular, and it is email based. It's written material that I send out by email. You send your assignments back by email, of course, and I mentor those assignments. I write comments in the margins, help you write. And those modules are $24.70 per module. Now I have the free YouTube 30 lessons that we're talking about right now. That's always going to be up there, I presume. That's always going to be free and available for anyone that wants it. However, most people want feedback. They want to know, well, okay, I've looked at the lesson, but have I really understood it? Am I writing a good first chapter? Is my dialogue the way Jim suggests it should be? If you want that sort of feedback, I'm going to offer the writing course, as you see it on YouTube, with accompanying assignments, one for each lesson. And when you do that assignment, you will get personalized mentoring from me. And that's going to be $20 per lesson. Okay, so if you'd like some feedback on each of these lessons, write to me. I'll send you the appropriate assignment and I'll mark it. As well, you might be a long way into your writing and you've just written the first chapter of a new novel and you want to know how it measures up. Well, I have a service which I call the Chapter 1 Critique. I can find out and show you so much about your writing just from Chapter 1, because Chapter 1 has very specific requirements. Right? You've got to hook the reader, you've got to introduce your character, you've got to set the tone. All of these things I assess, and I'll tell you what I think about your first chapter, which goes a long way to telling you what the whole book will be like. Now, I charge $45 for that service. It takes me a long time to write it and to actually go through and make marginal comments. So it's $45, and that $45 doesn't matter if your first chapter is 1 page long or 3,000 words, it still costs $45. $45 for up to 3,000 words. If you've written a 4 or a 5,000 word chapter, you can still figure out the cost, and that is that beyond 3,000 words, I charge $1.50 per 100 words. The other thing I offer is full line editing of novels. Now, I've been an editor for many years. I've given most of it away because getting bogged down in academic treatises and works that are for publication in scientific journals, it's pretty heavy going. I'm over it, but I'm very happy to edit novels. So if you want full line editing of your novel, it's $1.50 Australian per 100 words. So it amounts to quite a bit by the end. If, however, you've been a mentoring client of mine and I've mentored you right through every chapter of the book, I've done a lot of that line editing. I've got the structure right, I've got the characters looking good. So I then charge 80 cents for mentoring clients for 100 words, go back over and have it ready for public. All the punctuation, spelling, grammar that. So they are my writer services, and if that appeals to you, at the end of this video, I will give you my email address. You can write to me and say, hey, I'd be interested in it. Well, as you can see, the free YouTube course will remain free forever, but I'm making use of it. I'm going to attach to it some assignments which I will mentor you through. Learn to write a novel as you go through these lessons. So let's now have a look at what's been covered over the last 30. Okay, write that novel now. As those of you who have been following the course will know, it's a free YouTube novel writing course. Well, lessons 1 to 3 looked at the approaches to writing, how you can either follow the pen or follow a plan, and where to get some plot ideas. So that's 1 to 3, a nice gentle intro to novel writing. Lesson 4 was hard stuff. We looked at the elements of a strong commercial plot. Now, this is not formulaic writing any more than you can say that a house must have a floor, walls, a roof, door, and windows. That's not a formula. That's what anyone buying a house would expect to find. And anyone buying a novel would expect to find certain elements in that novel. Things like the inciting incident, a goal that's going to be followed throughout, a darkest moment at the end. All of these things are part of what we now know as a novel. They've got to be there, and they've got to be strong, and you may have to strengthen yours. So lesson 5 is creating a strong character and place them in the status quo. Let readers see what their life is like at the start. Lessons 6 and 7 deal with this thing called the inciting incident. The inciting incident is going to jolt the story forward and give your protagonist, your central character, a goal to follow or a quest to go on. Very important in a commercial novel. Lesson 8, well, I thought at this point people would probably want to start doing some serious writing, so I paused in the structural discussion to talk about writing a great first chapter. Let's face it, whether it's your first reader, someone in a bookshop clicking through your book, or whether it's the publisher or the agent you send your book to, they're not going to plough through a dull, dishwashy first chapter in the hope it gets better. That is not the way this industry works. It's got to be good. Lessons 9 and 10 deal with another decision you have to make. Yes, it's a decision. What narrative voice you use, whether you write in the first person, I did this, I did that, whether you write in the third person, he did this, she did that, or third person, multiple voices, won't go into that, and omniscient, whether you use an omniscient narrator. So they are choices that you need to make before you even start writing. You need to know what you're going to say, he did this or I did this. Lessons 11 to 14, this deals with the real bugbear for novice writers. Show, don't tell. I think nearly everybody knows this expression. If you've dipped into writing, you would know that one of the great sins, shall we say, is telling the story rather than showing it. Telling makes for a rather dull story. And I show you how to show in your narrative, in dialogue, in the descriptions you write, and in using the protagonist's own thoughts. Lesson 15, I call it getting through the middle mess. You know, most novice writers have this brilliant idea. They know how their story starts and they can dash off chapters 1 to 3. And mostly they've got a great idea of how it's going to end, a whiz-bang ending. But, you know, those middle chapters, that's the killing fields. That's when novice writers fall over and the book becomes a non-event because it's hard. People haven't really thought this out. They don't realise that after the first 10 pages and before you get to the last 10, there's an awful lot of pages to fill. So we're going to look at that, how to get ideas for that middle point. And one of the things you can do to jolly your writing along is using subplots. And many people don't think about this because they have this very linear plot. They don't think about using subplots. So that's another thing. Lessons 16 and 7, we're returning now to discussing structure, the all-important structure. And that structure will include a plot arc of rising tension. It's like firing a cannonball. It goes up, and at some point it reaches its zenith and down it comes again. And that's plot arc of rising tension. You've got to wind that tension up so that the reader's on the edge of his or her seat. We look at the high point, which is the darkest moment, and I answer some readers' questions in these chapters too. Lesson 18, I go back to talking about show, don't tell, and I introduce the all-important bit of dialogue, because dialogue occupies, in most novels, about 1/3. So let's talk about it. I talk about dialogue punctuation because before you can write good dialogue, it's not a bad idea to know how to punctuate it correctly. So I get that out of the way in lesson 19. And I also talk about the sad truth of getting published. It's not good news. And whether it pays to get your work edited before sending it to a publisher. So that's lesson 19. Lessons 20 to 23, back to dialogue again. Well, we haven't left dialogue. We talked about dialogue punctuation, but now I'm really going into the actual words you're using. What makes good dialogue? Lessons 24 and 25, again, back to the structure. We now look at the big end point of your novel. This is the most important. This is the darkest moment where things couldn't get any worse for your character. And then suddenly there's a way out. That's the climax. And then tails off very quickly in the denouement. Lesson 26, having given you this very important structure and looked at many things you need to be able to do some good writing, I now look at some of the things that aren't essential. That's why we're up to lesson 26. Some of the non-essentials that can really enliven your writing and make it more interesting for you as an author anyway. That's looking at what theme is running through your story, and can we put in some symbols here and there, a little bit of symbolism. Continuing on this esoteric vein, we're looking at the protagonist's inner journey that takes place as the outer plot happens, and your character's wants and needs. Lesson 28, we go deeper into the psyche, and we look at this thing called the hero's journey or the mythic archetype. Lesson 29, rounding it up a little bit, looking at how, as you progress with your writing over the years, how you can improve it and how you will develop your individual style. Of course, lesson 30 is this one. It's the wrap-up. Well, there you have it, folks. That's all from me. After 30 lessons, thank you very much for following them with me. And so it remains only to say goodbye and to say that if you are interested in any of those writing services that I mentioned, like the assignments and the mentoring to match each of those 30 lessons, or a chapter 1 critique, all you have to do is write to me, and here is my email address as I conclude the program. So goodbye a final goodbye and thank you again. Bye-bye and keep safe.